Have you ever been watching a movie or a TV show or soaking up the plot of a game and then felt yourself grow genuinely worried about the characters? Maybe someone might not make it, or there's some terrible lingering truth over the narrative and you don't know how they'll get out of this situation. And you're in that shit, you're invested. Suddenly you're 8 years old and nothing in your life has been as important as this story beat. Then you blink and remember that that's exactly what this is. A story beat, a portion of this particular fiction that was crafted by humans to shift the tone of the narrative. You remember that the only reason this conflict exists is to make the eventual resolution feel that much more thrilling. And maybe for a moment you take solace in that. Okay, everything really will turn out fine because it always does, but then you look down and you're not a kid anymore. You know that these are actors, this is CGI, he isn't really in pain, and this is just a disc in your PlayStation. And obviously all of these things are true, right? Like, of course, as humans with functioning brains, we can all healthily accept that this is not real. The reason kids can view stories with this level of reckless abandon is because they are still learning how to separate the real world from fiction, and they haven't seen a dozen other stories just like it before. Cool. But how do we prevent this from happening? Should we prevent this from happening, or is it just part of the experience now as a bitter, tired adult? And better yet, am I the only one that does this? Like sometimes I feel like I can't just enjoy media anymore without instantly analyzing every little thing on screen. Maybe it's a byproduct of being a YouTuber since I'm always looking for something to write about, but regardless, it drives me crazy. So I asked you guys about this in a poll a while back, and maybe I'm not alone. We'll circle back to that in a sec. Today, I want to talk about the two ways we consume media, the wide-eyed, slack-jawed, suspended disbelief kind, and the critical, pick it apart and appreciate / shit on the tiny things kind. And maybe something beautiful that happens when a story uses one to bolster the other. I want to understand why for so many of us, we simply must analyze when we consume media, why in some cases it feels like we're consuming it wrong, why we struggle to just let it be what it is at face value, why it's so hard to be worked. That's a term that'll become relevant later. But real quick, let's hear a word from today's sponsor, Factor. Imagine this, you open your fridge and there is a bottle of mustard and some expired milk. It's time to go to the grocery store. But instead of making that grating little trip, you hear a knock at your door and your food for the week has been delivered to you. You see, with Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service, you can kiss grocery shopping, meal prepping, chopping, dishwashing, clean up all of that tomfoolery off of your list, and enjoy a rich variety of over 35 weekly ready-to-eat meals. Meals that meet your preferences, your lifestyle, whether that be calorie smart, vegan and veggie, protein plus, and not just for dinner. With over 55 add-ons to choose from, you can grab quick breakfast items, grab-and-go snacks, ready-to-drink cold-pressed juices, shakes, and smoothies. This cold brew latte protein shake is divine. Should I start drinking coffee? I know I finished the backlog last month, but being able to just grab something out of the fridge that is both ready in 2 minutes and tastes freshly cooked is mind-boggling to me, and it helps me get back to what I'd like to actually be doing instead of cooking for almost an hour. And you can tell these meals are never frozen. It feels like they just meal prepped for you and immediately ship them all ready for you to eat, which is exactly what I need these days. If it's what you need, then head to factor75.com or click the link below and use Daryl Talks 50 to get 50% off your first Factor box. You might remember me working with HelloFresh earlier this year, and funny enough, Factor is now owned by HelloFresh, both of which are extraordinary. Together, there's something for everyone. So once again, don't miss out. That's factor75.com or click the link below and use Daryl Talks 50 to get 50% off your first Factor box. With that said, let's dive right back into trying not to overanalyze your consumption of media. But first, we need to acknowledge that there is a certain level of analysis that must happen when we absorb anything, right? We don't just not think when we watch. Great entertainment rewards you for noticing the details and for trying to comprehend the subtleties presented. Foreshadowing works because we're smart enough to know something isn't right, which later creates a payoff in the form of a plot twist. The reason the "I am your father" scene lands so hard isn't just because it's unexpected, it is a moment built upon the little things, like Alec Guinness's haunted reaction when Luke asks Obi-Wan about his father. A good game rewards you for showing a thorough understanding and mastery of the mechanics. In Souls games, it's satisfying to see your stats go up and you spend souls, but it's even more satisfying when you get a knack for the combat and figure out how to beat whatever you're stuck on. You can never fully turn your brain off, so to be clear, what we're talking about here is analyzing something so deep that it breaks your immersion with it. I'm talking being so stuck on a puzzle in a game that you stop experimenting and say, okay, what do the developers want me to notice? I'm talking watching a scene like this in an anime and then thinking, yeah, I don't think they had enough time or budget to animate this part like they wanted. I'm talking being that obnoxious friend that points out that Leonardo DiCaprio genuinely cut his hand in this scene and just rolled with it. And then thinking about how all of the other actors must have reacted once the director said cut instead of, just watching the movie. And frankly, I think the reason some of us struggle with this is because we are all experts. We've all seen this movie before, over and over and over. We've all watched a video about our favorite game. We've all seen hot takes on Twitter and then come up with an even hotter one. After we consume any piece of media, there is a fire hydrant of secondary content around it just waiting for you to go bathe in. You're bathing in some right now. But being an expert alone is not the problem. In fact, as many of you pointed out, it can actually make your time with the story that much more meaningful since you do have a deeper appreciation for it. What I want to avoid, and what I think many of you want to avoid, is this sudden mental evacuation from the story that comes from knowing too much about how it's made, your immersion being broken because you can't unsee the smoke and mirrors that make this illusion work. Psychologists have created a proper term for being truly engrossed in a story. They call it narrative transportation. And studies on this have revealed a few things. In one 2015 article, researchers had participants watch a 20-minute film and be sure to note how many times the word gun was used. In another group, they were asked the same thing, except the film was all out of order. The scenes were not shown chronologically. And interestingly, when the film was shown in the correct order, subjects did significantly worse at noting every time the word gun was used. The hypothesis here being, when you're properly absorbed in a narrative, it becomes harder to focus on an external goal. Another study found that when participants were distracted from the story and experienced less narrative transportation, it led to reduced story-consistent beliefs and evaluations. The takeaways here are twofold. When you're truly immersed in a work of fiction, it's harder to pick it apart, and when you're distracted, it's hard to buy into. You're either really in it or almost completely out of it. It's tough to do both at once, which is why a lot of you commented on that poll that your first viewing or playthrough is typically the one where you consume, and the second and third ones are the ones where you go back and soak up all of the details, all of the things you didn't notice before. A lot of you also mentioned that you do most of your mental processing after the fact, between play sessions, between episodes, and that fits. Again, the evidence supports that it's tough to be transported at the same time you're critiquing. It's like trying to drink a soda and talk about how it tastes at the same time, which is kind of why it's a problem if our minds slip into analytical mode during a story and all at once realize that it's outside of the story now. The shift between the consuming and the analyzing is the issue here, it seems. Of course, it's a beautiful thing to be able to celebrate a work of art on two levels, right? The narrative and the craftsmanship. To be able to appreciate the quality of the animation in Jujutsu Kaisen despite the piss-poor working conditions over at MAPPA right now can in many ways make the story land even harder because you can see the passion behind the people that made it. But for some of us, it might also be tough for you to re-engage with that story when suddenly your mind won't stop honing in on the animation. You can appreciate art on multiple levels, but when you can't turn it off and you start talking about the soda as you're drinking it, that's when you choke. And there was one fan base in particular that can truly never turn it off, a fan base that struggles to be worked. Imagine you flip on AEW Dynamite one evening. You don't know much about wrestling, you know it's fake, but you're bored and you've seen some clips online and it's fun in small doses, so why not? You don't know many of these wrestlers in the ring, but you recognize Kenny Omega. You have an annoying friend that talks about how great he is, how he's back with the Elite right now, and how he's a good guy again. Whatever. This match has a lot going on. Everyone here is ridiculously athletic, and it's fun to watch. A little invested, you turn up the volume, and then...
Gentlemen, we gotta get the
A chorus of boos fills the arena. I thought these were the good guys, you tell yourself. Shouldn't everyone be cheering? Why are they cheering the bad guys? You text your annoying friend. Oh, it's because they're in Chicago. Well, why would Chicago specifically be booing these three? Oh, it's because Chicago is obsessed with CM Punk. Well, why would that matter? Oh, it's because there was a lawsuit involving a backstage real-life fight between the Elite and CM Punk. Well, why did that happen? Oh, it's because CM Punk broke character in a press conference to absolutely shit on them all and in no uncertain terms denounced their legitimacy as contributors to the wrestling business. Wait, this isn't fake? This was a real-life altercation? But why would he say all that? That is a long story, but isn't it so much more interesting than this random Wednesday night match?
I promise I'm going somewhere with this. Just give me a second.
You see, wrestling is a strange form of entertainment because it is an athletic act put on by two parties that pretend to hate each other in order to sell drama. These two are actually friends, much like these two are actually friends, but on screen, in the narrative, they play a part. They are working. Now, most of us know that wrestling is all an act nowadays, but back before this was common knowledge, this act had to span into the real world. People didn't know that this was all pretend, so wrestlers worked even when they were not on the clock. Good guys and bad guys were never to be seen together in public. For a time, Santa Claus was real, and the fans believed what they saw on TV for years. However, as the internet introduced itself, bad guys and good guys were caught smoking weed together or hugging in the ring after TV cameras stopped rolling and the illusion slowly faded, it became a little harder for wrestlers to work people into believing the story. As the years passed, wrestlers' real personal lives, their contracts, what shows they worked for, who they had real-life beef with, all quickly became just as interesting, if not more, than their scripted on-TV personas. Fast forward to today, and the backstage real-life drama is often so much more intriguing than the presented story that the knowledge of said drama by the fans can hijack a live show, which is exactly what we saw on this evening. By this point, fans were so divided about who was the cause of the real-life lawsuit that they were taking sides, either Punk's side or the Elite's side, and it's obvious where Chicago stood on the situation. This is one of many examples where the fans knowing a little too much about what goes on behind the curtain can completely derail the story, not just for one single quiet moment of your consumption of it, but live as it happens on national television. Imagine having your intrusive thoughts about the show that you were watching screamed by thousands of fans in the background of that show. This is what it is to be a wrestling fan. The people are just as much a part of the show as the wrestlers themselves. If you've ever seen that excellent video Super Eyepatch Wolf dropped about Roman Reigns, or happened to watch the chorus of boos that rung out at the conclusion of a 2015 Royal Rumble when narratively they should have been cheering because technically the good guy won, you can see just how much dissonance can be created and how difficult it is to become immersed in the presented story when the fans know, or at least think they know, what's going on behind the scenes. It's hard to be worked when everyone's thoughts on how the show should be run are interrupting the show itself. And to be fair, we're talking about two separate issues here. Being distracted from the narrative by your knowledge of game design is very different from being distracted by your knowledge of the drama around a game's production. But the former happens in wrestling too. I mean, just look at these threads I pulled from r/squared circle. The conversations here are so unbelievably high level. Talk of how often finishing moves should be kicked out of to still feel like a big deal, how wrestlers should be presented, whether or not losing clean hurts the legitimacy of a wrestler, who should be given more TV time. Threads like these are the result of fans being so in the know behind the production of their preferred form of entertainment that they practically want to make it themselves and will vehemently reject the product on the product as it's unfolding if it's going in a direction that they don't feel it should be. And I just look at this and think, there's a kid in the crowd each week who is there because he just likes Cody Rhodes. It's just that simple. And it's that simplicity that I think you lose when you consume any fiction with this higher level of comprehension I miss when I could just play a game with the same level of wonder and blissful ignorance that I had as a child. Nostalgia hits us all differently, but maybe it's not that older games were better, that you see the past with a rose-tinted filter. Maybe it's that you didn't know any better, you know? There's a beauty and a fragility to those days that we can't get back. Pro wrestling fans are a fascinating case study, but I think they are an extreme manifestation of what a great many of us become after years of enjoying the art we love. The more we consume, the more we pursue, and the more we understand about the creation behind our favorite things. Long gone are the days where we played a game through uneducated eyes. Everyone is a game design guru now. Thanks to wonderful channels like these, the literacy for game development is better. The literacy behind story structure and character development and cinematography is better. And none of these things are inherently bad, but a strange consequence of them is that sometimes the how it's made distracts from what is made. With that literacy under your belt, you can't unsee things like how certain items are painted in order to make it obvious to the player what items are interactable so that they don't meander around trying to break everything. You can't avoid how predictable certain narratives become because you are way too quick to pick up on foreshadowing. You can't really believe that Dr. House isn't any real danger in this scene because he's the main character. They simply cannot kill him off his own show in the middle of the season. You can't fully enjoy a wrestling match without trying to figure out how they let this guy lose without making him look weak, because there's no way they're letting the championship change hands on the weekly show and not on a pay-per-view. And I think it's for those reasons that the media that really captures our imagination these days are the ones that don't rely on our established understanding and in fact use that against us. Meta-narratives in gaming take over the internet because we haven't seen this movie before. In Undertale, we assume we know what these figures mean. In One Shot, we assume that we can just close the game like we can close any other game. In Control, we assume we know how credits and bad endings work. In Doki Doki, we assume that it's a certain genre when in fact one of these days, I'm going to stop milking this game for examples. In the Stanley Parable, I don't even know where to start with this one. And it's not just meta-narratives. I made an entire video about how I genuinely could not enjoy Outer Wilds until I stopped viewing it with video game literacy glasses. The title Outer Wilds is not a video game was not meant as disrespect, it was meant as a compliment because it completely forces you to stop relying on what you think you know about video games to progress and enjoy it. I had never seen anything quite like it before. I briefly mentioned this in the backlog video, but Hellblade's ending also breaks an assumption that you have about final bosses in video games to make its point, and I will never forget that one. So many times we aren't fooled for a second that a main character isn't any real danger when their peril is threatened. But any confidence we had that the same plot armor existed in Game of Thrones is completely tossed out within the first few seasons. If this show threatened to kill someone off, you believed it because it showed you that no one was safe, which not only kept people historically invested, it hurt people. It hurt people bad. I'm going through the same thing with Jujutsu Kaisen right now. This is why stories that take risks work, because they inherently subvert what we think we know about what writers and developers are doing. It's what makes pro wrestling such a uniquely fascinating form of entertainment, because it can do this shit in real time. Writers can, on the fly, realize that the real-life drama has captured everyone's attention, and then turn that controversy into a part of the on-screen fictional narrative. Here is a segment where MJF speaks on national TV, but he isn't addressing the wrestler that he's going to fight next week as part of the show. He's talking directly to his boss, Tony Khan, about how poorly he feels he's been treated as a talent and how underpaid he feels he is.
Don't ask him to reach into his pockets and pay the man who's been busting his ass for him since day one. Make sure he hoards all that money so he can give it to all the new ex-WWE guys he keeps bringing in.
So, if you're a fan that is aware of the real-world controversy, you watch this and think, wait, is this for real? What exactly am I watching right now? Is this a work or a shoot? especially after they cut his mic and don't acknowledge his existence after they come back from commercial or for weeks afterwards. Wrestling can immerse you by taking what has broken your immersion and then making it a part of the story. It would be like if you hesitantly booted up Hogwarts Legacy and then one of the characters just turned to the camera and started bashing J.K. Rowling for her horrendous behavior and how they're just disgusted that they have to be in this game now, and then that initiated a side quest revolving around the controversy. I almost had a stroke trying to write that because no other form of media can do this quite like pro wrestling can. It is extremely tough to take that distracting conversation about a narrative and weave it into the narrative. But it is most certainly one way to re-suspend your disbelief. So what do we make of all this? Because as much as I have taken the time to carefully articulate all of the ways our knowledge of how the sausage is made can distract us from enjoying the sausage, I still don't have a fix to my problem. Not every form of media is going to be that brilliant or innovative or brutal, and there will always be stories that are just sort of standard, that do enough to make you feel something without actively trying to throw you off what you think you know about its structure, and that is absolutely not a bad thing. The reason this whole immersion-breaking analysis conundrum is an issue for me personally might be because I'm a YouTuber, it might be because I'm a wrestling fan, it might be because I'm both. And I didn't want to make the video all about this because it would have been such a drag to write about, but I think nowadays with so many complex opinions about media circling around, a great many of us both feel like it's normal to consume media on this higher level and feel as though we should be contributing to the conversation on a higher level. The reason there are so many shit takes and what's an opinion that'll have you like this threads floating around is because so damn many of us now are just, frankly, fiction snobs. It's not enough to just like something anymore, you have to be able to defend it in the but is it actually good conversation, in the where does it rank conversation, in the but does it hold up conversation? And I don't want to demonize this flow of thought. People have these discussions because they're fun. Hell, it's part of the reason I stay in business, but again, a strange byproduct of it is that sometimes I think a lot of us struggle to just play, watch, and enjoy without doing anything more than that. I miss the simplicity that comes with liking something because you like it. All that to say, I still have no clue how to fix this. There was no psych study I found that showed that you could just unknow what you know so that what you know is less distracting when you're trying to stay immersed. But if this is a problem for you, I do think that it might be at least a little helpful to just not give a damn what other people think should be happening in a narrative, to contribute to these conversations a little less, and to remember that the art you like best is best because it's not a competition and you don't have to show your work when you think something is profound.
Hey everybody, how you doing? Daryl here. Just wanted to pop in at the end of the year on the last video. I always like to just sort of come on real quick and say thank you so much for making this job so much fun. It's been 6 years now. This is the 6th year of me doing this, and I'm just very excited to, number one, be done with the backlog. Number two, be at 500,000 subscribers, and number three, finally have a break. I'm tired. I'm ready to drink some eggnog and hang out and be with the family. And I hope that you're excited to do the same. I hope that you have a fantastic holiday season. And again, I just want to thank you so much for watching the videos this year, for being here, for commenting, doing all the things that you do. You guys are simply the best. And I really thank you so much for making this so much fun for me, because I truly enjoy doing this, even if I am very tired right now. As always, if you like what you see here, I do have a Patreon that you can feel free to go and support. There's lots of bonus content. I do some very small, cozy streams there. I also do blooper reels, and some other weekly input, creative input, things like that, voting for thumbnails. It's all there. You also get to see your name. There should be names. you might get to be on screen. You also might get to be a featured patron. This month's featured patrons, everybody. Give it up for Spunky Siren, Inno, Chris22, Mal_K. We have J Hamilton Roque. Did I say that right? J Hamilton Roque, Connor M, Dullahan, and Deadbeat Deborah. Thanks, Deborah. But yeah, that's going to be it for me, guys. Just want to say thank you again so much. 6 years, it's been incredible. Here's to 12, here's to 1,000,000. You guys are simply the best. So happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year, whatever you celebrate, just enjoy that shit. And as always, have yourself a damn good one.